You guys, could you imagine your clients Christmas week staying in this beautiful home in Maui and they've just showed up, they've spent their first night there and they wake up the next morning and they're getting kicked out of the house?
What I've learned at this point is the second I take that on when I knew I shouldn't have, I am just not happy. I'm miserable doing it. And I realized I probably should have said no.
Don't work with someone price checking, work with someone that needs help.
If you have that pit in your stomach that this isn't going to work, odds are it's not going to, right? And you saw the red flag and you ignored it. Now you got to figure it out. Welcome to the Travel Agent Guide, the podcast pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to be a travel agent. We're talking real life, the challenges, the wins, the money, the mistakes, and the growth. Whether you've been in the travel industry for years or are new to it, we're in this together, and you're exactly where you need to be.
Hi, I'm Bergeron, and I am with Haley DeCarlo, my co-founder of Sava Travel. Today, we're going to talk about the hottest of all topics, how to bless and release without being a jerk. I think this is one of my biggest, when I first started, I hated telling people no. You just always kind of feel like an asshole. So, Haley, I guess I want to just dive right into what are the reasons what are the reasons we should fire a client?
I have a handful of red flags, and it's just hard, right? There's so many different reasons. I think one of the biggest hurdles is budget. People wanting to go to a destination, they truly don't understand how much it's going to cost to get there and to enjoy. That is probably what most often you're going to end up blessing and releasing a client for. I would say that. I think kind of how they treat you is very important too. Do clients understand my schedule? Do they respect my, out of office and things like that? I think that is really important too. What else do you think? What else is kind of high on your list?
Flights only. I think flights only.
If you charge a fee,
That's a matter of education at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I've had so many people that are like, oh, I already booked my hotel with points from Marriott. I just need to remind myself that they're not being assholes. They just don't know how it works. So it's up to us to sit there and be like, oh, the majority of my money comes from commission that is paid by the hotels, right? I would say the other thing is Airbnbs. So I just help them understand the reality of Airbnbs and how you don't have contracts with them and stuff like that. What else? Budget is definitely the biggest one. Oh, I know, Haley. If a client's kind of just jerking you around, oh, I want to go to Hawaii, and you plan out a whole trip to Hawaii, and they're like, just kidding, we changed it to Ireland, and you plan out a whole trip to Ireland, and they're like, just kidding, we're now going to Antarctica. Girl.
I just heard that one a couple weeks ago from another advisor. What
Absolutely
are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah.
Absolutely done. Okay, so I think the reasons are basically they're not your ideal client. Whatever that looks like to you at the end of the day, it should simply be they're not your ideal client. So if somebody's reaching out for a trip to Disney and they have a $20,000 budget, but that's not what you're trying to do with your business, you need to respect yourself, right? And say, nope, that's actually not what I do. Now you can give that referral to another friend, and you should, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't take the business just to take the business. If you want to learn about the destination and you're interested, take it all day. But if it's something where they say, I need 2 nights in Omaha, Nebraska, can you help me? Don't do it just to do it, right?
I just had an inquiry today for New Orleans, and I'm like, listen, I know it's a fun city. 4 years ago, I've sent a few clients, but it's just not my niche. And I let them know where my niche was. I do Europe and Asia, and I'm happy to send you along to another advisor that I know dearly. So you have to do it. I think if not, what I've learned at this point is the second I take that on when I knew I shouldn't have, I am just not happy. I'm miserable doing it. And I realize I probably should have said no.
Oh, I absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so what if it's a trip that doesn't have much profit, but I'm willing to do the work? What do you do then?
That's where I come in and charge my fees. High almighty, right? It's just a great example is domestic travel. I think there is a lot of potential to earn with domestic travel, depending on the location, Hawaii, Alaska. But then there's some areas like Montana, right? I've learned even Grand Canyon. I've done a lot of road trips for clients. I come in and I charge really high fees here because the commission's not fantastic. And everything that you're booking is 9 out of 10 times book direct. You're not going to get paid commission if you're booking direct. If I'm doing $1,500 worth of, canyoneering for a client, then there I don't make money. So charging that fee on the front end, super important. And be transparent with your client. I have no problem telling them this is why I charge a fee. I can do this, but when I do your park entry tickets and we're looking at a 30-day timed entry, that's all a lot of time, energy, and effort, and I don't get paid for it truly unless I'm charging this fee.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
I would also say don't over justify it. Like,
Yeah,
give them the reason. Hey, I have to charge. In this case scenario, I've got to charge a fee. The reality is, I'm not going to make any commission on this trip, but I'd love to do the work for you.
yeah,
The fees just need to compensate me for my time, right? And throughout the number, be a little ballsy and move on. And if they don't accept it, that's okay too, right? Like you weren't really excited to do the work anyways, so it's fine.
exactly.
Okay, how the budget was the first one you brought up, and I think that's the worst one because you don't want to go,
So
I'm
hard.
sorry, you're too poor to work with me.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel great. So how do you word the budget's too low?
It's hard. I think one of the last trips I had to give up was this lovely couple in their 20s. They wanted to go to Italy and they wanted to explore Italy for 2 weeks, and they had like a $7,000 budget, right? This is during Jubilee year, not kind of knowing. And I had to just break it down for them. Like, listen, I want to be transparent. Money wise, it's just not going to get you far. Flights alone, we're looking at over $3,000. That's almost
Ooh.
50% of your overall budget. Then we're left with nothing. I mean, I can get you there, but I'm not going to put you in three-star properties because you're going to be miserable. And you want to be able to go see the Coliseum or, do a wine tasting in a vineyard. If I can't give you those experiences, then this probably isn't what you're looking for, right? So I think understanding that you're not going to compromise your overall service to meet a client's budget is very important because I promise you, you will hear that backlash when they get home. That three-star property that you put them in because it met their budget, the AC was broken and they were hot and miserable for 4 days, or the rooms had a musty smell to it. These things matter, right? So I've learned at this point that if the budget can't truly give them an experience I know they're going to appreciate and enjoy, it's not worth it in the long run.
So there's two big things you brought up that I want to make sure everyone listening gets that broken down. The first is take it step by step, and the easiest thing to piecemeal out of that is the flights, and it's usually the biggest chunk of change, right? So being able to say, and I do this live with my clients often, I'll pull up Google Flights, I'll put in the destination, I'll put in their dates, and I'll be like, oh, wow, okay, so the best flight is, $1,200 a person. Okay, well, that takes us up to 2,400. That leaves us with X. Divide it by the days they're there and be like, okay, well, this is Y per night. And the reality is, tours are typically between 100 and 150 a person. Depending on the tour, they can be much more than that, right? So then I've got to take out another, let's say, $300 a day to be conservative just for tours. Well, now this is what I'm left with for hotels. And I think the easiest thing is to explain I can't specialize in everything, and I specialize in 4 and 5 star hotels. So you don't have to say no. No one can plan your trip. And you don't have to say, no, I don't plan your trip. You could basically say, like, I only plan what I specialize in. And sadly, that we need a higher price point to for me to be able to do this and kind of like leave it on them. They may come back and be like, I've got a ton of flex in my budget. I just wasn't sure what it cost to go to Italy. Or they may come back and be like, we really only have 7 grand. What do you word it if they really come back and only have 7 grand? How do you say, okay, bye?
It's hard to do. But I think the sooner you do it, then you're kind of setting realistic expectations in their mind of what this trip actually could be. I kind of pivot, right? Is there an alternative destination that you were thinking
Yeah.
of, right? Maybe there's somewhere else you want to go that's not Italy. Have you thought about X, Y, and Z, right? And I'll throw a couple options at them prior to just saying, hey, this isn't going to work, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important to see, right? The other thing is, of course, asking budget. Is that the absolute most? Then, if not, you just tell them that, listen, I think for this trip, unfortunately, there's not much I'm going to be able to do. If you can look at alternative dates and maybe changing the amount of time that you want to go, then we can look at alternatives here. But I don't want to make you believe I can give you something that's not realistic. And most people, they will be so grateful that you're giving this feedback to them, right? And they're so grateful that you're taking the time to say, wow, I had no idea flights were almost $3,000. That is so much money when you look at it from that perspective. So I think just not saying, just don't ever just ignore the client. Just don't do that, right? Have the decency to explain to them why you can't do this. It's going to go a long way. I've had clients who have come back to me after I've had to bless and release for a certain trip and have ended up booking with me. So that kind of speaks wonders, right? Just remember they're still just the person who wants to travel and they just need a little education, and that's what you're here for.
I love it. So possibly pivot to another location. Oh, you wanted Hawaii. What do you think of Mexico? Right? I've made that
Yeah,
exact pivot so many times with
yeah,
clients. But see if you can pivot if it's
yeah,
realistic. Or if not, just be honest about what a budget for that particular, what a minimum budget for that particular location would look like for you to do the work. You'll need to be educated and kind of have that number in your mind for sure. Okay, let's go to the second reason we mentioned flights only. What do you do if someone says, I want flights only? And let's have the conversation in two pieces.
yeah,
First class flights, no class flights.
yeah.
What do you say here?
Okay, so maybe there are certain clients that a new client that comes to me that I've never worked with, I don't do flights only, right? If you see coming into the business brand new, what I tell a lot of advisors that I coach and mentor, what is your relationship with them? And what type of trip are they doing? And do you see potential in establishing a future relationship with
Yes.
them to travel? If that's the case, then go into it pitching whatever fee you're comfortable doing the work for. Because the reality is, if you are booking flights for a client, but changes still come up or cancellations still come up, you still have to service the clients. It's not that you're just booking them and forgetting about it. That's not the case. You're still servicing this booking until they travel. I have one client who I book first class airline tickets for him and his wife 3 times a year to go from Wyoming to Albany, New York. I make no commission off this. It's non-commissionable, but I charge a fee and my client loves the work that I do for them. Wheelchair accessible. I take care of them and I charge $300 every single time. It's 150 per
Woo!
person. But I am taking care of him, making sure he has the best route. They're in their 80s, so they need that help to take care of it. You have potential with some flights to use vendors like Regal Wings that you could make some commission off of. It's not a lot of commission, but it's something better than nothing.
Yes.
I I personally would not make a business out of flights only. It's a lot, but there is some potential there. It's just how you kind of navigate it to make it make sense. Do not just say I'm doing flights only as my business. That will not work for you. Just don't have that mentality right from the beginning.
And before we get a ton of backlash, there are absolutely agents out there that make money doing flights only. But a
Okay.
typical
Yeah.
agent doesn't, the typical new agent coming into the business or even a couple years in probably isn't educated on a GDS. And unless you're going to use a GDS and understand how to use Sabre or any of the others, like that's where flights only is not going to work for your business. I would also say I love that Haley took the time to highlight the reality around are you going to see potential in this client? I've absolutely done flights only for a client and not charged a fee, but it's because I knew what they were looking, the type of travel they typically did multiple times a year. And the way they came to me made me do it. The way they came to me was they said, my travel agent won't do X. Will you?
Yeah.
Yes, all day long. They were booking Viking cruises 3 or 4 times a year, and the travel agent would not do pre or post. And unless it was through Viking, she wouldn't do like an FIT pre or post, and she wouldn't do flight. She was unless they were through Viking. She just literally wasn't going to do the hard part of the trip. And I now own that client. And I would not apologize if I saw her to her face. You've got to do the work to keep
Yeah,
the client at the end of the day.
for sure.
So think about how it is they're coming to you. Do the work for them if you see potential. And if you don't, explain, I don't make money, best of luck kind of situation. I think you can do it in a gentle manner when they understand that's not how you make money, right? It's
For sure.
basically, it's not my job. Okay. What about an Airbnb? Would you ever work with Airbnbs or are you always like, not happening?
No, so Airbnb itself, the platform, I don't work with. I don't know any travel advisor who does. not only is there no commission to be made, it's just not, I would say, customer service friendly. At least from my experience, it's not something I would feel comfortable backing me up in the event a host cancels by any means, right? I would never want to put my clients into a situation of an Airbnb. It doesn't go to say there's not properties that I would book elsewhere, just specifically Airbnb for me is a no.
So I love that you mentioned that because we do have partners that book vacation rentals. You can book a VRBO through Expedia, not all of the VRBOs, but certain VRBOs through Expedia you can book. HVN is a partner. There's villas of distinction if you're going to go the villa route. But I wanted to really highlight here how Airbnb contracts work and how this little piece of education makes it easier for you to turn down that business. So when you book an Airbnb, you do not have a contract with that house. That is not how it works. You basically have a request to stay. Legally speaking, at any time, the homeowner can cancel your stay. They don't have to give you a reason, but let's say they sell the house a month before you're supposed to stay. They're only legally required to give you your money back. That includes while you're staying at the house. You guys, could you imagine your clients Christmas week staying in this beautiful home in Maui and they've just showed up, they've spent their first night there and they wake up the next morning and they're getting kicked out of the house? That was an actual phone call I got from clients. And they're like, we're just searching travel agencies trying to find someone that will help us. There's nothing I could do for them at that point. They are literally kicked out of the house, homeless, having to go to the Marriott up the road, right? Or the whatever was available really at that point. So it's different than if you're booking with a hotel. With a hotel, legally speaking, you have a contract with them. So you don't have to stay there. We all know people get walked from hotels, but the hotel has to give you equal or better accommodations for those same nights for that same price. That is not the case with Airbnb. They can just tell you you're shit out of luck and hope you have a great day and that's it. And there's nothing you can do. This personally happened to me on a couples trip in 2021 and I was heartbroken. It was the first time I had really traveled since the pandemic. And I had this beautiful Airbnb booked and they canceled 2 weeks before my trip. So explain to clients and take the time to educate them why that platform is not for you because you're not willing to roll the dice with your client's experience. But if they want a vacation rental, there's other platforms that do have contracts. So just something that I kind of like to throw out there and a good little piece of education that helps for clients to understand why it's not going to be the best fit. Luckily now we're seeing a lot of little like apartment type hotels all over Europe
Right.
and all over the world. And that's kind of been my replacement. Haley, are you leaning on anything else that I haven't already mentioned for that?
No, that's 100% how I do it too. It's just, other than really no earning potential, it's just too much of a risk. And I would never want to put my clients into that risk.
Way too much of a risk. You guys, I ended up staying on that couple's trip at a Best Western, and I will never forgive Airbnb for it. I was so mad. Anyways, it was a beautiful trip. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about limits because we've talked about reasons, but like, how do you know your limits? Haley, you're so good at turning clients down and be like, I don't do that. Did you always kind of know this was for me and this was not? Or over time, have your limits become, your boundaries become a little bit stronger?
I think definitely in the beginning, no, I took on everyone and everything until I said, what am I doing? It just didn't make sense. So, knowing my boundaries and limit, it takes time. You get to probably 3 years where you're like, okay, I don't want to book Montana anymore, right? Or I don't want to book Florida. It's just not what I want to do. I don't get excited doing it. I dread it. Another thing I don't love to book is cruise lines. I love a river cruise, but I am not big into the Caribbean cruises. It's just not something I love to do when I travel. So I have a hard time putting myself into it and understanding it and telling my clients it's a great fit. I will 100% work with any of my repeat clients for that. Absolutely, right? But I won't take on a new client who's really big into cruising and that's what they want to do forever because I know every time I have to book it, I'm not going to be happy. And the reality is, if it's something you're dreading doing, you're going to keep putting it on the back burner and then your customer service is not going to be great and it's just not worth it.
I could not agree more. Okay, I have something that's going to trigger some people. So everybody sit on the edge of your seats here. But do you work with a client that openly admits they're working with other travel advisors?
Me personally, yeah,
Yeah.
I have. I definitely have. I've had clients again come to me. They just booked an amazing Viking cruise with another travel agent, and that agent told them they wouldn't touch their week in Croatia before and wouldn't do any of their
Oh,
flights.
you had a similar to
Yeah.
mine.
And
Okay.
I
Is
hear
this
that a
common?
lot.
Okay.
It must be. And I think what happens is a lot of travel advisors do not like to book flights, period. They don't see it as a way to make money and they just look at it as kind of, why am I doing this? Well, you're doing it because your client needs your help and you want to make sure everything's aligned for them and you want to provide that white glove service. If you just say, hey, go ahead and book your flight yourself, then if they can do that, why can't they find a hotel and book it themselves? Or why can't they book their own transfer, right? So you want your clients to feel like you're taking care of them from start to finish. So I feel like that's where booking flights kind of comes in hand.
That's beautiful. And I do agree. Like full white glove service is the only thing that's going to keep you alive. I mean, especially people that are out there and they're truly just being order takers. The reality is, my opinion is AI is absolutely going to move into that space. If you're just sending links to different all-inclusives, well, what's going to stop the client from just asking ChatGPT which all-inclusive is best for me? Here's my interest and this is what I'm looking for. Versus if you're booking the dinner reservations, you're booking the flights, you're booking the transfers, the stuff where you're not making a ton of money, that is where you can absolutely shine for your client. But again, that doesn't have to be on you. So, one of the things we do at Sava Travel is we provide these guest experience managers. They're basically fully trained admins to anybody that wants to sign up for the program. And basically, the admin takes over everything after you've done the main booking. So, you have to book the flights and the rooms and the things, but after that, they're going to do the dinner reservations, the spa appointments. They're going to put together the family photos. They're going to make sure the balloons for the birthday are in the right room, whatever it is. So you're able to focus on the next sale and not the admin work where you really don't get paid a ton of money. Let's say a flight gets changed. Well, now you've got to go to the transfer company and give the transfer company all. No, don't waste your time doing that. Like hand that over to an admin. So I guess my opinion of that is like you've got to do all the work because that's what makes you different. And that is absolutely how you can get business from other advisors. Haley, what about when they openly admit to kind of price checking you against other advisors?
Usually this is where my fee comes in hand, right? So on the
Yes.
consultation, I definitely ask, have you ever worked with a travel advisor before? And I would expect that that person's usually honest with me and will tell me, and not all people will. But
Yeah.
once you pitch that fee, and if it's X amount of dollars, then maybe they no longer, okay, maybe she's serious, right? Like I'm not going to pay that fee because now I can't price her against other advisors. So yeah, that's kind of what I say. I don't compete with other travel agents. I would never want to take business from somebody else who has already worked hard. And I will tell a client that when they mention it to me, that if you truly need my help, this is what it looks like to work with me. But if you're also working with somebody else and they put in X amount of time, I want you to understand if they didn't charge you a fee, they're not getting paid. And that, to me, it's not okay. I feel like we should all have each other's back in that sense. So I am very picky with that because I would never want to step on anyone's toes and take their business. However, if a client's basically crying to me because their advisor just, booked the Viking cruise and never came back to them and they haven't heard from them, then what else am I going to do? At this point, I'm going to step in, help the client who needs the help the right way. So there's two ways to approach it and definitely take care of it.
All right, everybody. If you take away one thing from this, it's ask your clients if they're working with other advisors. And if it's another advisor that's actively in the throes of planning a trip for them, probably not the right thing to do to try and steal that business. But if the advisor is not doing a great job, that's free reign. Don't work with someone price checking, work with someone that needs help. I think that's an absolutely wonderful way to approach this industry. We have to respect each other. I don't always charge a fee. In fact, I typically don't because I'm almost exclusively working with referrals. So if somebody comes in and tells me like, "Oh yeah, I've talked to this other advisor about X, Y, and Z," I do the same thing you do, Haley. I'm like, "Hey, that person didn't get paid anything for that work. Why don't you continue to work with them?" Let that person have their business. There is so much pie to go around, people. We're not taking each other's pie. There's a lot of people out there not booking with travel advisors because they don't know the benefits. And that's where your market is. You have so much room for growth for all of us out there.
I
All
love it.
right. So, last question here as we wrap up. I have an awesome client that I love working with, but I'm just not interested in the destination. So, client goes to Europe every single year. I love working with them. They're amazing. Next year, they want to go to Japan, and I don't want to learn about Japan. I never anticipate selling Japan. What do you do then? Do you still bless and release? Do you learn about Japan begrudgingly? How do you work through that?
Well, considering I love to book Europe and Japan, that's a tough
Probably
question.
a terrible example.
Yeah, I was like, it's fine. I mean, I think it really depends. So, like for me, an example would be okay, they just went to Europe, they spent a bunch of money taking their family of five during the summer. Next year, they just want an easy year, maybe 10, 12 grand to Caribbean. What does that look like? You have two ways to kind of approach it, right? You can take the trip and do it if that's truly what you want. But I think if you have somebody in the industry that you can truly lean on, that you know does Caribbean only, and say, hey, listen, I want to, have so and so work on this trip for you because they are truly an expert. They go to the Caribbean every month, they stay in all the resorts. I think you're going to be in better hands with her for this trip. But I promise you, when you go back to Europe next year, you're coming right back with me. Then those are conversations that, assuming you have that relationship with somebody, you can do that. But what are your thoughts? Like, is that how you would approach it?
No, I love it. And I think there's two options basically. You can always lean on a DMC. And I think that one big thing that advisors don't typically do that is an interesting avenue is bring that DMC on for the consultation, for the proposal, for the whole nine. And the way that I've pitched it to clients is I basically say, like, hey, I love Europe. I love planning all these things. My job is to make sure that your trip goes smoothly no matter what. For this particular trip, I am not the expert, but I know who is, and they're a partner of mine. It's not going to cost you anything extra to work with them. It's going to be just like working with me, but I want to bring in a destination expert for this location. And then I kind of introduce the DMC and they're around as questions go in the consultation. They're almost running it for me, which is incredible. And it shows that, hey, I've got partnerships all around the world and I'm able to do this. So I'd say that's one option to lean into. And then the other option I love of giving out a referral to someone you trust. You know why? It's going to support their business as well. And they're going to turn around and do the same thing. So if you know someone that's Caribbean only and they're killing it, or you know someone that's Asia only and they're killing it, lean on them and ask for the same thing in return. Be like, hey, when you have people ask you about Paris, remember me. I'm going to give you referrals. You give them to me. This is going to be amazing, all forward, right? And you can create some really unique partnerships over time. All right. Any other reason that you would turn down a client that we haven't talked about so far?
I'm sure there's several reasons, right? We would just have to kind of dig and dive in. No, I think, just making sure your client respects you, trusts you. And it's sometimes it's hard to kind of gauge right up front. So I think just kind of demanding that this is your business right from the beginning and making that relationship known, the easier it's going to be for you in the long run. Other than that, it's, you just got to go with what you're comfortable with. If you have that pit in your stomach that this isn't going to work, odds are it's not going to, right? And you saw the red flag and you ignored it. Now you got to figure it out, right? Don't do that. Try to let it go at the beginning, make your life easier so you can focus on the work that, you truly love.
Oh my goodness, I absolutely love that. Make sure your clients respect you at the end of the day. We all have people that just don't treat service industry people the way they're supposed to. And I think standing up to a client that is, for whatever reason, being demanding, but not in an okay way, will really change who you are at the end of the day as an agent. All right. This has been wonderful. I hope you guys are all taking away how to turn down a client, how to bless and release without being a jerk. So they walk away just being better educated, understanding what you're doing and respecting your time. All right. Thanks so much. We are from Sava Travel. If you want to learn more about our host agency, we are always here to support you. And you can simply go to savatravel.com. That's SAVA. All right. Until next week, we'll talk to you soon.